there's obviously a great outflux of people that leave the church. And a lot of those people, from what I understand and what I've encountered, it's usually ignorance about what the church is and how important it is that leads those people to just kind of give up the faith. But even within traditionalist circles, I mean, the statistics are the same or even higher sometimes as far as who is leaving the church and how frequently that happens. It just seems crazy,
Yes.
And I don't hear that talked about a lot, but I've definitely heard it repeatedly. Even there have been like research statistics out there you can find. I can put some in the description below that I've found. But yeah, it's like 70, 80% people leaving the church at, eventually, or when they reach adulthood. It's like, that's insane. I mean, terrible. But if you're leaving traditionalism, like, you're not a traditionalist because you just wandered in and like you just thought, oh, I'll just keep coming back here every Sunday. Like you said, you go and you find the answers, you find reasons, you want to believe in what you're doing. And so for them, I feel like it's more of an issue of being abused or scandalized or just burned out. It's like the bad news church instead of the good news church. Because if there were no crisis, you wouldn't have to be hanging on to what you're doing, or you wouldn't be justified in your disobedience, right? So it's like they've got to keep it always like stirred up and all panicky. So everybody's like,
yes, that's right. Yes, that's exactly right. And that's something I've actually pointed out on a few different occasions is if this traditionalist Catholicism is the answer, why does it seem to be failing just as dismally? When it comes to vocations, if you look at the vocations and that are in like society priests or different religious communities associated with them, and you look at that number compared to the number of people who adhere or support the SSPX or Traditionalist Catholicism worldwide, it's dismal. I mean, it's dismal numbers.
And expect it to be a lot more.
Right, exactly. If it's just supposed to flourish because of this type of living of Catholicism, why aren't we seeing that? And I know that because of traditional Catholicism, my other the siblings who were older and understanding what was going on, they would have left the church. They were on the verge of losing their faith. They would have gone Protestant. They would have gone agnostic, unbelieving, and part of that was the realization that the whole thing was a facade, that it was hypocrisy, that why should we give assent and to the authority in the society or the authority in whatever sedevacantist group or whatever leader you happen to be following? Why should we assent to him when he's not assenting to the Pope, when he's not assenting to his bishop, right? It undermines the authority, and it is a living hypocrisy. And they see through it. They see through that. Because one of the things, of course, was my parents were taking traditionalism to its logical conclusion, which was where they were ending up home alone, because none of the traditionalist clergy have mission, and so none of them have the authority to be able to offer the sacraments or teach, so you can't go there. And you reject the Novus Ordo Church because it's fallen into heresy and is apostatized, so you just have to stay at home and be a recusant Catholic. And my sister was dating a Protestant fella who his family did the same thing. They worshiped at home. And she was going, how is this any different from what we're doing? How are we any different than the Protestants, right? And maybe somebody with the SSPX might hear this and say, well, that's off the deep end. That's not us. The SSPX, people in the SSPX always love to use sedevacantists as a scapegoat, right? We're not like them. We're not sedevacantists. You call them out for being unfaithful to the Pope and rejecting the Pope's authority. Oh, but we're not sedevacantists, right? They're always using that as a scapegoat. And it's ignoring the crux of the matter, which is that they're doing the same thing that the sedevacantists are doing. They're just doing it in a different way, right? They're rebelling against authority and they're worshiping on their own. But instead of a family, right? Instead of a family worshiping on their own, rejecting the clergy, it's clergy worshiping on their own, rejecting the bishop or rejecting the Pope, right? So it's just a different level, right?
Right. Oh my gosh, that's nuts. Well, I mean, and like you've said before, that sedevacantism is the logical conclusion of like the society's mentality, because the society's like, there's error within the church, there's these problems, there's this council that went wrong and all that stuff, but they don't really have an explanation for how that was possible. So the sedevacantists are like, it isn't possible because the Holy Spirit protects the church, except our reason is that there was no real pope, that he couldn't, ratify all this stuff and promulgate it because he wasn't even there,
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, okay, I mean, honestly, that does make more sense. And then, but then, like you say, then you have all these other issues run into admission and stuff. And it's like, yeah, we're just gonna go home and just hunker. I mean, Jerry Matitix, your mom was big into him, and you mentioned him sometimes. Didn't he end up doing that too? It's like,
yes.